Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to do what we always do. Take all those sources you've gathered, the articles, the guides.
And just boil them down to what really matters.
Exactly. Fast, effective, and today we're going hyper-practical.
We really are. This deep dive is all about one very specific and, let's be honest, kind of high-stress situation.
Oh, yeah.
Walking into a busy public market in an English-speaking place and just trying to communicate.
Yeah.
It's where all that language theory you learned meets, noise and speed.
I love this mission because you can be great on a language test, but the second you have to buy some fruit, that anxiety can just spike.
Right.
That feeling of being overwhelmed in that first simple conversation.
Yeah.
That's what we want to take apart today.
It's so relevant. Markets are, I think, the best place to practice because the conversations are quick, they're repetitive, and the vocabulary is immediately useful.
Right.
So our goal here is to give you a simple, sort of step-by-step guide so you feel confident walking up to that stall.
Okay, let's do it. Let's distill this down. We want to get rid of that hesitation. So let's jump into this scenario. I'm at a market. I see a beautiful stall. Maybe it's got berries, peaches, that kind of thing. I walk up. I say, am I hello now? I need to know the price of the peaches. What's the next line, and where do people go wrong almost immediately?
The next line is the price question.
Yeah.
The trip-up is, it's all about grammar.
Oh,
Agreement. You're looking at a whole pile of peaches, which is plural.
okay.
So many learners just go for the simplest structure they know, which is, how much is the peaches?
And the sources are really clear on this, that is kind of a linguistic red flag, the classic singular plural trap.
It is.
But hold on a second. If I walk up and I say, how much is the peaches? I mean, the vendor is going to understand me.
Oh,
Right?
100%. They'll know exactly what you mean.
So why is getting that one little word are so important? What's the real practical benefit?
That's a great question. And
Yeah.
it's really about confidence, not just about being understood. Yes, they'll understand you, but using is instead of are immediately marks you as a beginner. When you say, how much are the peaches,
Yeah.
it projects competence. It changes the whole dynamic.
So you go from being a student asking a question to a customer doing business.
Precisely. It's a huge confidence booster. Just remember the rule. Multiple items, apples, peppers use are. A single item, or something you can't count like rice, use is.
That little rule really can change how you feel in that moment.
It really can.
Okay, so we've got the price question down. Now we need the language for the environment itself. We want to move beyond just pointing at things.
Right. And we could skip the basics like market or price. Let's talk about the words you use around the transaction. For example, the person you're buying from is the vendor or the seller.
And all the stuff they're selling, the fruits, the vegetables, is a great word for that.
Produce.
Produce. I like that. It feels a little more advanced.
It does. And then there's quality. You want to know if it's worth the price.
So how do we ask about that naturally? We're not just going to say, is this fresh?
Well, you could, but a better way is to make it part of the conversation. You could ask, are these tomatoes fresh today? Or even something more conversational like, how long have you had this batch? They look beautiful.
Ah, that's much more actionable. Okay, now for the big one, measurement. The sources all say that you absolutely have to understand the word kilo.
It's the universal language of measurement in markets. A kilo is a kilogram, of course. But the key is knowing what to say when a vendor tells you they're $3 a kilo, because you don't always want a full kilo.
Right. You don't want to get stuck just pointing to a small bag and, making a little gesture with your hands, hoping they get what you mean.
Absolutely not. The phrase you need is actually quite simple. It's just, can I have half a kilo, please?
Yes, I have.
Exactly. Or you could say, can I have a small bag of those? The important part of that phrase is, can I have?
We've mentioned that phrase before. Why is can I have so much better than, say, the more direct I want a kilo? What's happening there linguistically?
It's all about politeness. You're using what's called a modal verb, in this case, can.
Okay.
Verbs like can or could turn a direct statement, which can sound like a demand, into a softer request. You're asking for permission, not just stating what you want. It changes the entire tone.
And speaking of tone, the sources are really clear that politeness is maybe the most important tool you have. You can mess up the grammar, but if you're polite, the vendor is almost always going to help you out.
Politeness signals respect.
Yeah.
It's huge. A lot of mistakes that learners make aren't just grammatical. They make the sentence sound really abrupt, almost rude.
Let's look at those big three mistakes again, but from that perspective, the tone. So, starting with the price mistake.
Right, where you just say, how much this?
Yeah.
It's not just that it's broken English. It sounds impatient,
Mhm.
like you're in a hurry. You're missing that essential verb, to be.
So the fix is just to add it back in.
So just add it back in. How much is this? It's a complete sentence. It sounds respectful. It's the difference between pointing at something and actually speaking to someone.
Okay, next up is what our sources call the intention mistake, where you say what you want to do, but you're missing one tiny essential word.
That's the missing two. People say, I want buy apples. It's direct, sure, but it feels incomplete.
So what is that to actually doing in the sentence?
Think of to as a little bridge. It connects your feeling, I want, to the action buy.
Huh.
Without it, it's just two separate ideas stuck together. With it, it's a smooth, natural thought. I want to buy apples.
It makes sense. Okay, and finally, the most important one, the one that really gets to politeness, the request mistake.
This one is so critical. The mistake is being way too direct.
Ah.
It sounds like an order. Give me apples.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds like a frustrated tourist who's had a long day.
It really does. So we switched to that polite form we just talked about.
Can I have some apples, please?
Yes, and it sounds so much nicer. That extra layer of courtesy is just, it's essential, especially in a friendly market environment.
So once we have that politeness down, we can move into more advanced stuff, like dealing with the price, a little negotiation maybe.
Exactly. Negotiation, even if it's very gentle, is part of the market experience. So what if the price they give you is a bit of a shock?
What's our go-to phrase if it's just too much?
First, you state the issue clearly but politely. Maybe you emphasize the to a little bit. That's too expensive.
Okay.
Then, and this is the important part, you show you're still interested. You ask for an alternative. Do you have anything cheaper?
That's a great move. You're not saying their price is wrong. You're saying it doesn't fit your budget. It's about you, not them.
Exactly. Or if you're feeling brave, you could try a soft negotiation. Something like, would you take $10 for this bag?
And if they say no?
You just smile and say, okay, thank you anyway. Always end on a polite note.
Okay, here's another common problem from the sources. Small change, you've only got a big bill, and the vendor might not have change.
Oh, that's a classic. The awkward silence while they search for coins.
How do we avoid that?
You have to be proactive. Ask them before they even start bagging your stuff. Do you have change for a 20? Or a more colloquial way is, can you break a 50?
Break a 50?
Yeah, it just means, can you exchange this large bill for smaller ones? It saves everyone a lot of trouble.
Good tip. Now let's talk about the friendly part of this. The sources had that great little story that shows what can happen when you get the language right.
Oh, the story of the free tomatoes. I love that one.
Yeah, so the customer uses that perfect, polite English we were just talking about.
They say, can I have 3 tomatoes, please?
And the vendor just smiles, puts 4 in the bag, and says,
1 is free.
That one little act just changes everything, doesn't it? It stops being a purely financial transaction.
It becomes a personal exchange, a human connection. The vendor chose to do that. And that's the real reward for using your English in these spaces. It goes beyond just buying something.
It totally elevates the whole experience. Okay, before we wrap up, there was one very specific pronunciation tip in the sources, a word that everyone struggles with.
Yes. The word is vegetable.
It's so tricky because of the spelling. You want to say every letter. Vegetable.
Exactly. That instinct to pronounce every vowel just sounds completely unnatural to a native speaker.
So what's the trick?
The trick is compression. You crush those middle syllables together. The correct way to say it is V-E-J to bull.
V-E-J to bull. 3 syllables, not 4.
That's it. If you can master that quick 3-syllable pronunciation, you will instantly sound much more natural.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. We've gone over how to start the conversation, the importance of plural agreement. Remember, apples are.
Key context words like produce and vendor.
Mastering the little word to when you state what you want, and using those polite phrases like, can I have, for your requests.
But I think the biggest thing is that confidence is more important than perfection.
Absolutely. The critical takeaway for you, the learner, is just that practice matters so much more than being perfect. Don't be nervous. The sellers, they expect mistakes. They're usually very patient.
Just focus on being understood and, more importantly, being polite.
Right. That politeness will smooth over any little grammar mistake.
So our challenge to you is to apply this immediately. Next time you're at any kind of market, just try one sentence from this deep dive. Even just, how much is this? Is a huge step.
It's a huge step.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a final thought, building on that story of the free tomato.
Okay.
Since we learned that these market exchanges can be so personal, think about how that friendly interaction is different from shopping in a big, formal supermarket.
Yeah, the rigidity of a store versus the flexibility of a market.
Exactly. In that moment when the vendor gives you something for free, what's really happening there? What nonverbal cues, what cultural expectations are at play? What does that small gift say how they see you as a person, not just a customer?
And how did your polite English help earn that trust? That's a powerful thought.
It is. We encourage you to just observe that dynamic the next time you're out there.
The language opens the door to the culture. That's it for this deep dive. Thank you for letting us guide you through the sources today.
We see you next time.